It's really great to see you again, Chad. Always a pleasure to collaborate with you. And our different lines of research always seem to cross over and intersect and bring us to whole new levels of understanding. And that's certainly going to be the case with what we're going to talk about today on liminal spaces.
Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain.
Death, destruction, terrorism, and weakness.
But you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there. Like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. It is all around us. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. You have to see it for yourself.
Open your eyes.
Look at it! A world built on fantasy.
Synthetic emotions in the form of pills.
Psychological warfare in the form of advertising.
Mind-altering chemicals in the form of
Food.
brainwashing seminars in the form of media.
Controlled,
Isolated bubbles in the form of social networks. Real? You want to talk about reality? We haven't lived in anything remotely close to it since the turn of the century. We turned it off, took out the batteries, snacked on a bag of GMOs while we tossed the remnants.
I think the subject matter we're going to speak about today is very important. You know, there's a lot of people in the world at the moment feeling almost this exact way, and in between, you know, that the world's almost in a state of two places, like we're in a transition, people not knowing what's going on.
A transitional area or state, both physically and psychologically, that exists between two distinct stages or places. It's the in-between, the threshold, or the point of change, where one is neither fully in the old state and fully in the new. These phases can evoke feelings of unease, nostalgia, or even fear due to their emptiness or unfamiliarity.
I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
And the subject came up in our emails because you were kind of going through a space of not feeling really connected with the present, and it wasn't a bad space, and yet it was something that gave you pause, and you're kind of feeling in between. And so I emailed you back that a viewer brought a term to my awareness that sounds like that weird space in between called liminal space. It caught my attention because I hadn't heard it before, and the viewer was referring to my channel. I scratched my head, what's that? Look it up. And you and I are not on an easy road, but I think we're helping to bring in the new earth of love and light that we want to live in and be a part of. And I don't think it's that far away. It's just hard being wide awake in a world of lies.
Yeah.
And a lot of people still sound asleep.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of weird in-between place to be in and of itself. So, you know, we're awake, we're seeing everything that's playing out. So many people don't see it. And when we were exchanging back and forth about this, I mentioned the surreal nature of the world we are living in right now, where things are very wrong. And while many are waking up to what's been going on, many people are still acting as if nothing is wrong.
Yeah.
And sleepwalking.
Yeah.
Through the insanity that has been conditioned into our world. We're seeing the dystopian 1984 on full display in 2025.
The question: how does one man assert power over another? Making him suffer. Power is inflicting pain and humiliation, otherwise you cannot be sure. Power is tearing human minds apart and putting them together again in new shapes of your own choosing.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Power is not a means, it is an end. The past is forbidden. Why? Because when we can cut man from his own past, then we can cut him from his family, his children, other men.
And there's incessant gaslighting that causes people to doubt their sanity, their perception of reality, or memories, and targets those that are capable of seeing what's going on, while people that are completely brainwashed and indoctrinated support the transhuman depopulation agenda of the parasites. And that's what we're seeing. That's what's playing out. And it's kind of exciting because there's more people that are waking up.
Yeah,
And it's like the worst of the worst is being exposed for everybody to see.
exactly. The work we do, in the current world where everything's against you, the materialism and the programming and so forth. But we fight it. It's like a current, isn't it, that we fight? And you give a lot of inspiration to people. And I think part of what we do on our channel is letting people know they're not alone, and that's one of the most important things, isn't it? That so many people are isolated, feel alone, are confused. So much on my channel is love, but don't get me wrong, there's duality. It angers me. It's painful to see so many people hurt, to see the corruption in the world. And often I speak soft and so forth. It doesn't mean that there's no passion there. Do you know what I mean? And I've been seeing a lot of people's pain, and anyone that's an empathist and really is truly connected to the world will understand what I'm saying. There's a lot of people going through things and you literally feel their energy. It's almost like John Coffey. I explain it in Green Mile, when you take all that energy, you've got to you transmute it. So,
and I think one of the things we're going to do today is to show our viewers that this is not organic.
no.
This is manipulated.
This
is occulted.
Yes.
And I've done quite a bit of research that I'm going to share, some of which I've done before, but I'm putting it all together to show you clearly. This is very much part of a plan to get us to that exact state of being confused, of feeling crazy, of making people crazy.
Yeah.
And it's all part of this non-human agenda where we're the prize. Creation is the prize. The creator is the prize because we're directly connected to the creator.
Exactly.
And if these demonic parasites can get our energy and have us give it willingly, and we're going to talk about that, then they've succeeded in their objective.
Of course.
And they have to have our consent.
Yeah.
And we're going to show you how they get it.
And sorry to interrupt, Michelle, but to put it plainly, when we talk about all this control and manipulation of the world going in a bad place and the agenda and all of this, it's plain and simple. Everybody can see when you go to the supermarket, the churches, the adverts, the news. Nothing is put positively. Nothing is God. Nothing is ordained. Nothing is truth. Nothing is preying on the virtues. This is nothing far-fetched and fantasy. People, if they just look, can see it every day. They moan about it with the taxes rising, and they moan about it with the shortage of food and the children starving and this and that, and all of the gaming kids are on, and how there's violence in the streets and knives and guns. It's all part of it, isn't it? It's there.
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
Yeah, it's crazy to talk about how it's some type of agenda or it's going some sort of way for a reason, And
I think we'll make a pretty compelling case for that today.
This is it.
And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, Chad, because I put together a a PowerPoint that organizes this information.
Perfect.
And even though Chad and I don't have the same style and don't come from the same place, invariably we interconnect. And that's one of the real joys of this working relationship, this co-creative synchronistic partnership that Chad and I have, that there really seems to be a spiritual connection between us, that
Yeah.
Chad recognized when he saw my work the first time. And it's just it's like the two of us together can create something even bigger than
Tremendous.
what we do separately.
And it's all a spider's web, Michelle. There's so many strings and attachments to it. You're absolutely amazing at the information, and I'm look at the words and different things, but it's all part of the same thing, isn't it? So pulling on all these different spiders, edges of the web, you start shaking the whole web, don't you? You know what I mean? So
And I'm starting with this photo of a lighthouse that you sent me that you took in Plymouth.
yes.
And I was captivated by what you said about it. But what you said about it was very intriguing, that when you meditated with the lighthouse, you could visualize coming inwards from the bottom, mirroring a torus field,
Mm-hmm.
and about the macro micro of life, climbing the stairs, visualizing, climbing up your spine,
Mm-hmm.
and being in your mind's eye.
Yeah.
And that really struck me, if you want to add to that.
Like when I go to these places anywhere, I could go to a park and you sit there, don't you? And you start looking. But this is why maybe I do take a bit of time off. It's like you think to yourself, oh, you're a bit weird or crazy. And I know I'm not. I know that my mind's beautiful and it looks at analogies. But looking at the lighthouse and everything for me is a metaphor. The sun going up in the sky and coming back down is a representation of our lives. The lighthouse to me is very similar to us. It's very similar to the tree. It's our spine. It's almost similar to the game as well, snakes and ladders. The staircase, our spine, we climb upwards to the highest point, which is our mind. And everything is a micro, macro reflecting itself. It's like the lighthouse or the helter skelter within the theme park. The swings, they represent the duality of going back and forth, the slide, the rising high in life to fall back down, the Ferris wheel. They're all representations or could be representations of us or our life, even if it's just the cycle of it. But the lighthouse is very special, and this is why I think you're attracted to it so much. You definitely come from it we come from it from different angles, but if it's a representation of us, we have to climb to our highest point. It shows a lot, doesn't it? It shows that there's a journey involved.
Yeah, and this also an important part of the energy grid system, just like the giant trees. And I feel like these were, source light distribution vehicles through this grid system, light energy. And I definitely think that the destruction of the energy grid was facilitated through not only these, but the other components of the grid system. But the lighthouses were particularly important because they're right next to water. They weren't built by the people that said they built them. So I'm seeing that the land broke off or sank, or something happened on these important points on the grid system. And then the other thing is, mention that you have everything to do with bringing giant trees to my awareness. Giant trees were part of the grid system, and I think these were direct connections with source.
Yeah.
The giant trees and the lighthouses played a similar function in terms of connecting us with our creator directly. And I know you've sent me some clips from video games with lighthouses and their connection with portals and things like that.
Yeah.
And, there's way more to the lighthouse story. There's way more to the true story of Earth and what was really going on here. That's been removed, so we wouldn't know anything real about our world and we've just been told lies. But there's connections with Earth and the rest of the universe and other dimensions, and we have no clue as to how exchange was facilitated and things like that. We just we don't have any real information to go on, and that's contrived also. So we're disagreeing with each other and at odds and discord based just on information.
Hmm.
And if we don't have the right information and we form our own opinions based on that information, we're arguing from a place of ego.
Yeah, this
That's
is it.
basically what it is. It's ego.
This is it, yeah. And a lot of the time, we're arguing over the same thing from a different angle or perspective anyway, and that's what annoys me a lot of the time, even say religion, the argument. But if we looked at it objectively, it's a God, isn't it? Never mind all the different things down below. You're worshiping one thing, but it's all, you can look at it from here, from there, from here, from there. Um, a lot of the analogies I do with words, it's just an analogy. It's there, it can be seen. It doesn't mean it's the overall truth. It's just one way of looking at the word. Um, but I often think things are hidden, as you say. A lot of our disclosure, for me, if people believe it or not, are put within our video games, our music, our TV programs, our books. It could just be part of the human mind, maybe, but not. Why not? Lighthouses are, in a sense, portals. They glaze out to the sea, to the sky above. They take you other places. We have portals within inside our mind. We can go places. Trees connect to everywhere. They, in a sense, a portal. How far you want to take it, they are that anyway, but things have definitely been hidden from us and inverted. And these things that once had special powers, which are told in myth, which are told in stories, are now hidden and changed into other things. Just like the videos we've done on the hospitals being changed from asylums, and a different face being put on things.
And that kind of gets into the inverted world that we live in today.
Mm-hmm.
All that's been done by design. And I pulled together examples to show you how we got here. And, people can decide for themselves, but I think it's pretty compelling. So when you were talking in that email about the visualizing coming from the bottom, going up to the top, the torus field and all of that stuff, and the being in the mind's eye, seeing far, brought to mind this artifact from Ecuador, and it's known as the Black Pyramid of La Mana. It features a pyramid shape with a glowing all-seeing eye at the top, which is seen under ultraviolet light. This artifact, found in a tunnel system in Ecuador, also has inlaid dots on the bottom that correspond to the constellation of Orion. The pyramid has 13 horizontal divisions or steps and 3 sides on the inlaid triangular face. The eye symbol is prominently displayed. The artifact is said to resonate with the concept of the third eye and Vedic mandalas. And I first became aware of the Black Pyramid when I was following megalithomania. This would have been in about 2011. And Klaus Stona, who investigates out-of-place artifacts, was a presenter on in this particular megalithomania conference, which was in South Africa. And this is before I started waking up to all this. Mm-hmm. But that stuck in my mind. And they've usurped these symbols. Yeah. They've turned this symbol into Big Brother and the Illuminati.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it originally signified our pineal gland and our connection with the Creator and connecting, our ability to connect with our higher selves and our Creator.
They put them in horror movies now.
Yeah, it's and they've done that with other symbols as well. They turned the positive symbols of the original civilization that was here, that was highly advanced and functioning in this place of higher consciousness, and and just turned it into something evil and scary.
Yeah. When they're all to do with creation or the development of man, our higher selves, it's just all been inverted, as you say. So anything to do with progression, self-development, self-help, alchemical transmutation, God, love, it all seems to be flipped, isn't it? So it's all turned on its head, and that's what we're exposing, which a lot of people are exposing.
So the goal of these dark forces has been to take us down from that high level of consciousness that humanity was in for a very long time.
Yeah.
And replace us with our worst version of ourselves.
Yeah. The devil, the lower self.
It's been a very painful process.
This is how you know the world isn't run by good people. Every time you turn the TV on, sin, 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 sin. Lower self. Let's lower them to their lower self. Let's go out and buy beer, man. Let's go and get McDonald's. Sorry.
And then they fill it with poisons.
Yeah,
things we shouldn't be eating.
It's like what's that carton? When it's sweets and it's all really it's that poisonous apple, isn't it?
One bite and all your dreams come true.
Very, very diabolical.
Yeah.
So I included these things that you sent me: a move with a smile and the roller coaster.
Yeah. I used to run a company called Move with a Smile. It was to do with a state agency, but what it was, I had probably 1,000 business cards left that had a saying on them. And it said, like, a smile can hide so many feelings, fear, sadness, heartbreak, but it also shows one of the things, strengths. Try and move with a smile. The idea, the motto behind it was to try and influence other people. And we shouldn't really move with masks. I don't promote masks, but if it's a mask to help yourself, even if it's for a short period of time, and to help others, why not try? And on the other side, it speaks about life being a roller coaster. I do see life very dual. We're going through a lot of darkness, and there's a lot of badness in the world, which me and you are exposing. At the same time, it almost seems like this needs to happen, and it is divine, because everywhere we look, it seems to go up and low, high and low. Our heartbeat does it, the sun does it, the roller coaster goes to its high, to go to its low, to go to its high. So every time that you tell people that there's going to be light soon and it's all going to come, it truly is, because that's how things work. The year works like it. The sun comes up in the sky, falls to darkness before coming back to light. The year goes from spring to summer to autumn to winter before spring again. We have to humanly go through these cycles, and we forget this. And when we're in our lowest stage, we seem to hate life. We're in that storm. We forget, though, that at the end of the storm, the sun will rise again, and we lose hope sometimes in the storm. The modern day could be considered a storm. We're in a storm. Times are hard. Mental health is at high, but this storm is manipulated, as we're saying. It's not just something that's just happened. It is manipulated. But we need to hold on, have faith, play our part just as somebody on a ship steering it in the right direction, ready to get through the storm. And we'll do it.
Right.
And it needs people like you, Michelle. It needs people. And it's not just people speaking online, it's people moving with a smile. It's you in the street, opening a door, moving with a smile, making people remember that there is still love in the world, because a lot of people forgot that. And I forget it at times, probably not as much as other people, but there's definitely love there. And if we want the world to change, maybe we have to be that change. On a small scale, this is all we could do, isn't it? On that larger scale, maybe us doing our smaller actions will add to the larger action.
I think it's all part of how we reunite in our consciousness and remember the love that we are,
This is it.
that all of us are.
This is it, which has been mass manipulated, turned, twisted, you know.
And what I'm going to do now is show you how we got here. And the interesting thing about my research is that it's cumulative. So I can go back through my research and pull puzzle pieces out from different areas
Brilliant.
and start to put it back together again in terms of how this dark state of consciousness has been how we've been conditioned into it. And it's not our birthright. Our birthright is sovereignty and abundance and joy. And we're conditioned not to believe that. We're conditioned into believing the world is full of pain and suffering, which it is and has been, but that's not our normal state of being.
Exactly.
And so I want to share with our viewers, there's convergences here on the work that you and I have done separately and together that I'd like to bring forward in this deeper conversation on liminal spaces.
Okay.
Firstly, I was researching the Bronx about 7 months ago and looked into Fordham University, which is a private Jesuit research university that was first established in 1841 as St. John's College. And the Jesuits began to arrive in 1846. The educational curriculum of Fordham has been influenced by Jesuit principles. Fordham University is also considered one of the most haunted universities in the Northeast, with persistent reportings of ghostly sightings, which seems to be a theme with a lot of places. Asylums and jails and so forth. Fordham University was also a filming location for the 1973 horror movie The Exorcist, about the demonic possession of a young girl. It was filmed at Fordham University. Parts of it anyway. Georgetown University, another Jesuit school and the oldest Catholic institute of higher education in the United States, was also a filming location for The Exorcist. And on the right is pictured what are called the exorcist steps, depicted in the movie when a priest was thrown down onto them from a house next to the steps, and remains a tourist attraction in today's world.
Can I just add something right there? As an analogy, metaphor, potentially, a priest being thrown down the stairs, if the stairs in our analogy do represent the spine or higher consciousness, the priest represents God being thrown down to its lowest point and dead. That just a take on it, just because that's what I do, analogy, seeing things from different angles. But I see everything as a metaphor. It could be a metaphor, especially as a form of art. And if a priest is thrown down the stairs and dies at the bottom, it could be an analogy for our highest consciousness falling to its lowest point and dying.
Absolutely. And there's no doubt that's what they've been trying to do in every way, shape, form, fashion possible.
If he throws him up on the other side, there's
no holds barred. Edgar Allan Poe lived a couple of blocks from Fordham University in the Bronx in a cottage he and his family were said to have moved to in 1846, which was the same year the Jesuits started to arrive, as previously mentioned, after the university was established in 1842. So he'd married his young first cousin, Virginia Clem, who was the age of 13 when they got married. And she died from tuberculosis when they were living at the cottage on the bottom right at the time in 1847. So Edgar Allan Poe lived a couple of blocks from Fordham University in the Bronx, like I said, and as you can see, he was a familiar figure at the college from this excerpt. He loved to wander around the grounds. He could make friends, and that he became friends with Jesuits at the college. Edgar Allan Poe was the Stephen King of his day, with his dark and macabre storylines exploring themes of death, madness, and the supernatural, and was considered part of the Gothic horror genre, which I'm going to be talking about here. The Joker stairs are also in the Bronx. Officially, the West 167th Street step stairs, which connect Shakespeare and Anderson Avenues at West 167th Street near the subway station there in the High Bridge neighborhood. They were filming locations for the 2019 film Joker, and later were in its 2024 sequel, Joker Folie à Deux, released in September of this year.
Just another point there, Michelle. The opposite or the inversion of that, maybe Rocky running up the stairs.
So for example, the 2019 film, Arthur Fleck walked up and down these stairs as part of his daily routine. Fleck was a failed clown and wannabe stand-up comedian whose descent into mental illness turns him into an alter ego known as the Joker, and inspires a violent countercultural revolution against the wealthy in decaying Gotham City. Towards the end of the film, he dances down the stairs to rock and roll music, wearing a brightly colored suit and clown makeup, representing a change in his character. This has resulted in these stairs becoming a tourist destination, like the Exorcist stairs, and a place where people reenact the scene in imitation of the Joker character. Sometimes in costume, sometimes not. So this converges with you talking about people willingly participating in death rituals like drinking in pubs in your video Words or Spells, Journey to the Underworld. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Pop culture makes things popular, doesn't it? And then we follow suit, and seemingly we follow a ritual unknowingly. You know, there's so much to it. There's so much to it. You know, with the words, his spells, for example. Shall I go into it a little bit, or?
Yes, I want you to go into it, because we were talking about the same thing, where they have gotten us to actively participate in their death rituals.
Yeah. So the alcohol video, to cut a long story short, it represents so many things, but the one that sticks out the most is the journey of Ra, which is the journey of the underworld. And the ritual of just going into a bar. And what we've got to remember here, this is where it gets really complicated and tricky. Words are homophones, and they can mean different things. Words are essentially spells. We wake up in the morning, where we go to a wake at a funeral, the morning, just like when you mourn, when you're in sadness. We work for our weekdays. We enter our weekdays for the weekend to come, to become weekend, to earn. But when we go to a bar, literally, we're going in, we're making an order, we're taking particular drinks. Think of gin, a spirit. What is a spirit? It's entering us. We are a spirit ourselves. It changes us. Witches, the word witches, when we put the S at the front, it's a switch. And alcohol often makes people switch, doesn't it? So we seemingly go through this ritual when we go into a bar. We go in sober in a normal state. We order from a bar, which is a representation of like some gate. The bartender is a representation of like a funeral undertaker. We exchange the token like you would the gold coin for Sharon in the River Styx. We make our order, we get intoxicated. That intoxication takes us to another side, the other side of the river. We become dead, we become wrecked, we become shipwrecked. There's all these different words to explain us being dead. The next morning, we're hung over, and it's self-inflicted. It could be represented as a man hanging. So, you know, essentially every time we go out to a bar and get drunk, we're going through the ritual of death just to wake up and do it all again. And it could be sinister, it could be unsinister to people, but still it's a ritual that's unseen. Like every word we utter on a morning when we say morning. But you get into this game of what do you say, what can you say, and you can't avoid these words. But I believe the awareness of having these words and knowing about them do give us power. It's like all these idols that tell us what to do and show us the way. What idol is a homophone? The other way of spelling idol is IDLE. Do idols make us idle? And when you think about it, they do, don't they? We surrender ourselves to them. We sit down, we watch them for hours, whether it's a movie or concert on our own. And then if we were to meet them, we would literally give ourselves up like we see these girls to the idols. They become idol to them. It's absolutely crazy. It's all the duality of words is quite funny. I'll tell you one funny one. You know how the mail gets delivered to you, but in the post. Well, generally, there's a stereotype that it's postmen, isn't it? It's males. It's always males that deliver the mail. You know, it's kind of, we do have females now, and I apologize for any female male women out there, but historically, the mail has been known to be delivered by males. So these words have power, and whether we believe them, it's another thing. It's right there in front of us. You know, we want society to be whole. Whole's a funny word, isn't it? Because you could spell it as in holes in the ground, and the more we try to become whole, the more holes seemingly happen in society. You could make such a poetic poem out of it all. It's we shoot for holes and make more holes. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, that's all really important stuff because we're talking about spell casting.
Yes, this is it.
We're talking about occulting.
Yes.
Of the world that we live in. You know, like the monster logo or the sigils 666 and other sigils that are around us, Enochian sigils, John Dee kinds of stuff. They're, you know, they've occulted our world. They're spell casting.
Yeah,
it's one of the many ways that they keep our consciousness down and keep us asleep.
This is it. Everywhere you go, isn't there? There's a sign, there's a symbol, there's words. These words have some sort of effect on us. And anyone that can deny that is wrong, because if I tell them to F off now, that's going to create a reaction in them, isn't it? The same as I say, I love you, is going to create a different reaction. So words have tremendous power. And that is just one way of showing it, but there is different ways that words can come across. And I believe there's a conscious and a subconscious. So because there's two words or two meanings, the conscious meaning goes in, but the unconscious meaning goes in also, and it affects us in dual ways. But we can't really get away from that unless we understand that.
Yeah. And that kind of brings in a whole nother layer of what you were talking about earlier with masks. And, you know, we have to navigate through life, you know, so that's where you get manners and,
yes,
you know, polite talk and things like that. You may not be feeling particularly polite in a particular situation or with a particular person, you know, but we have to weigh that. You know, we don't want to lumber through life always creating division and discord.
Yeah.
You know, always saying the first thing that comes to your mind is not necessarily a good thing.
This is it, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's kind of a balance. Maybe there's times we should say that.
Yeah.
But you know, that's just part of our conditioning. And I think one of the reasons what we're facing now is so difficult is we've been conditioned not to speak up, not to complain, not to push back.
Yeah.
And so again, and then in our world, when you do push back, you get slammed by the system. Or at least that's what it looks like right now. I'm very optimistic we're not going to stay in this place, but that's what's happening. People that speak up are the ones that get caught by the system and penalized by the system.
Yeah, persecuted.
So I'm going to go to the next slide because, you know, in my mind, all this ties together in this world we're living in today. So the previously mentioned Joker movies filmed in the Bronx took place in Gotham City, like all the Batman-related content. The Batman superhero first appeared in DC Comics in March of 1939. Gotham City is the primary city appearing in DC Comics, and while New York City has long been associated with Gotham City, It is depicted as a metropolitan city in the northeastern United States and one of the most crime-ridden cities in the world. The word Gothic has several meanings pertaining to darkness here. Gothic fiction, sometimes called Gothic horror, like Edgar Allan Poe's work, started with the publication of Horace Walpole's 1764 novel, The Castle of Otranto, which was later subtitled A Gothic Story. The setting was a haunted castle, and the plot was filled with psychological terror. The publication of this story was said to start this particular literary genre that was extremely popular in the 18th and 19th centuries, like that of Mary Shelley, along with Poe, Bram Stoker.
Yeah.
So Mary Shelley gave us Frankenstein, Bram Stoker gave us Dracula, and Robert Louis Stevenson gave us Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Which could all be seen in various ways, yeah, potentially, or
absolutely,
yeah,
no question about it. You know, they're programming and conditioning this
yeah.
very dark atmosphere here. Gothic fiction has such characteristics as an environment of fear, supernatural events, and the intrusion of the past onto the present. Settings were said to include physical reminders of the past, like ruined buildings, which stand as proof of a once physically thriving world in a state of decay. Like the example of the ruins of Wolf's Crag Castle here in Sir Walter Scott's 1819 historical novel, The Bride of Lammermoor. And Moor is Moor, which I believe its original civilization was Moorish, connected to Mu. I believe it was the same civilization as Atlantis, and I believe it goes back to ancient times to relatively recent times. And I say that throughout my work.
Yeah.
What are called moors or moorlands feature prominently in Gothic fiction, and often depicted not only as a refuge from things like abuse, but also ominous and threatening places, and the location of supernatural encounters taking place. Moorlands are described as being characterized by low-growing vegetation on acidic soils and include uncultivated hill land as well as low-lying wetlands, including bogs. Moors are also frequently covered by massive cut and shaped stones, like you see on the left. And I see the memory of the Moors and their advanced worldwide civilization after its destruction being retained in place names like these.
Yeah.
Then there are Goths. In today's world, people who identify as Goths are part of a subculture that started in the United Kingdom in the early 1980s that embraces dark themes in clothing styles, music, makeup, and so forth. They are inspired by the Gothic arts and literature of the 1700s and 1800s, as well as horror films. Goths are considered free-thinking and value freedom of expression. And the Goths I've known from earlier in my life were troubled kids from broken homes. Queen Victoria and Prince Albert, first cousins and members of the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, were part of what was called the Ernestine branch of the House of Wettin. They were descended from Francis, Duke of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld, who was born on July 15th of 1715, and he was the progenitor of the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, which seeded the lineage of the new royal houses of Europe. And in 1826, the ducal title changed to the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, or Gotha. My apologies on any pronunciation.
Me too.
On July 17th of 1917, during the reign of King George V, the name of the royal house was changed to Windsor, supposedly due to anti-German sentiment generated by World War I. The Battenberg family, also of German origin, decided to do the same thing, allegedly for the same reason. And they changed their name to Battenberg or Mountbatten in 1917. Goethe, sounds like Goethe, Goethe was an early participant in what was called the Sturm und Drang movement, which started for all intents and purposes from the mid-1760s to the late 1780s, and so that was approximately 15 years. Sturm und Drang translates to storm and stress in English. In the storm and stress movement, which along with literature included music, visual art, and theater, individual subjectivity and extremes of emotion were given free expression in reaction to the perceived restraints of rationalism imposed by the Enlightenment, which extolled an objective view of life. So the extremes of emotion in this movement included expressions of greed, violence, disturbing visions, nightmares, terror, murder, and other emotionally provocative subjects. The Sturm und Drang movement sounds very much like the Surrealist movement that began in the early 20th century. Surrealism was an artistic and literary movement that started in France and Belgium in 1917, and on the surface, one of its aims, we are told, was to release the creative potential of the unconscious mind by the juxtaposition of irrational images. Beneath the surface, the founder of Surrealism, André Breton, was a dedicated Marxist. He got his start in the Dada movement, which was said to have developed in reaction to World War I by artists who rejected the logic, reason, and aestheticism of modern capitalistic society instead of expressing nonsense, irrationality, and anti-capitalism protest in their works. He wrote the first of 4 Surrealism manifestos in 1924, and manifesto is a word we hear of a lot.
Yeah.
And it was in, Communist Manifesto, Surrealism Manifesto. Somebody shoots a bunch of kids, they have a manifesto. Manifest means bring into existence.
Existence, yes.
To manifest.
Like the word.
So the Surrealists sought to overthrow the oppressive rule. This is what they tell us. They sought to overthrow the oppressive rules of modern society by demolishing its backbone of rational thought, by tapping into the superior reality of the subconscious mind. The Surrealists hailed the development of the paranoid, critical, surrealistic technique in the 1930s by Salvador Dali, who was a weird MFer. That guy was so strange. In which the artist invokes a paranoid state that was said to result in the deconstruction of the concept of identity, allowing subjectivity to become the primary aspect of the artwork. So this is Dali's Metamorphosis of Narcissus, his first painting resulting from this technique in 1937, and it's at the Tate Modern Art Museum in London. So you've got the word narcissism in there.
Mm.
And boy, is that ever a big problem these days. Anybody that's ever had to deal with a narcissist knows how difficult that is. And another thing I want to mention is there was a vessel that crashed into a bridge in Baltimore last year, the Key Bridge. I couldn't help but notice the name of the ship was the Dali, named after Salvatore Dali.
Wow.
And then they have this predictive programming in Netflix movies and things like that. There was a particular Netflix movie, I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, involving a ship crashing into a bridge. Like that happened right before this happened last year.
Wouldn't surprise me.
The Ars Goetia, in particular, and lastly, with these similar sounding words and names that come to mind, I want to bring forward the similar sounding word of Goetia. Goetia is defined as a type of European sorcery or witchcraft transmitted through grimoires or instruction manuals for magical practices, which includes spellcasting and summoning supernatural entities of different kinds, including demons. And the word grimoire is the origin of the word grammar. The Ars Goetia in particular is considered the Grand Grimoire and lists the main demons, including Baal, at the top of the list. I think what we're seeing playing out in our world today is that demonic forces found their way into this world within the last couple of hundred years after destroying the old world. And these parasitic demonic forces have created a new world based on their darkness, involving extreme psychological abuse, trauma, and torture in high energy and technologically advanced places, given us an occulted dark culture, and have been implementing their desire to break our spirits and psyches in order to turn us into an energy source for them, and ultimately to turn us into them without us even being aware of it, using MK Ultra in all aspects of our lives, not just what is out there to find about the MK Ultra abuse and trauma on an individual level surrounding the Montauk Project on Eastern Long Island. They want a messed up, controllable humanity in their image, and not a humanity that is functioning at a high level of consciousness in the image of God.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I say, I believe that's obvious with everything we see, absolutely everywhere. Everything is to pull ourselves to our lower nature, to sin, to want, and to think for ourselves, to become selfish, which is only going to create a more corrupted world. No matter who's in charge of it or who's doing it, that's what's at play. The opposite of that would be a world that empowers the seven virtues, the highest self, which teaches children the right way, more about self-development and community, love, compassion, not about you go out there against the world and get as much as you possibly can. And whilst you do it, step on everybody's head.
And I'm going to pivot into Aleister Crowley. And I really think this dude is the epicenter of all of this nonsense. You know, this extreme psychological abuse and torture. And I'll be getting more into that. But I wanted you to share some of your experiences in Cornwall last year. And if you can talk a little bit about the Crow Tree when you talk about that.
Yeah, I think you found more in it than I originally did, but I felt a pull to tell you about the experience. When I was a year or two ago, I organised a trip to Cornwall. It was about 15 of us from the subscribers went down. I was invited by a lovely guy called Paul to his land to kind of camp, and we all met down there. It was a beautiful experience, really, really amazing for people to come from like different parts of the world and everything, Scotland and Netherlands, and there was just so many different people. It was beautiful. It was that reminder that we could still have a community. But where the actual tent and the little hangout was, where we were, there was this tree, and you could just feel the energy off it. It was like yang. It was yang, you know, like dark energy. Crows everywhere, just crows, and it was kind of a weird experience to have that, and obviously seeing the crows and different things. It was at the exact time you were telling me about Aleister Crowley, and me with words the way I was. You know, it's the first part of Crowley's name, and crows have got all these different meanings, and they're dark in their own way. So, and then obviously I sent that you having this experience camping next to these crows all of a sudden after you talking about Aleister Crowley with a group of people I've never met before. I did have a few horror vibes run through my head, but
you extrapolated something from that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So you sent me a graphic, I believe, or said something to me that crows are of the genus Corvid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're just going to connect some weird dots here. Because it's very weird. The Rosalind Franklin Lab which was the first COVID PCR testing mega lab in the United Kingdom. And it opened in June of 2021, and it closed by February of 2023. It was part of the Lighthouse Laboratory Network that was the heart of the UK Health Security Agency's plan for managing COVID-19. This is located in Crowley's hometown, directly. Royal Leamington Spa.
Yeah.
Is where he's from.
Yeah. Connection one.
This is a synchronicity that popped out at me 2 days ago when I was putting together a PowerPoint for a different presentation. And this is from old research. Without this presentation, I probably wouldn't have even thought about it. But the eastern end of the Thames estuary is delineated by the Yantlet line. And it's a line across the estuary that's marked by the Crow Stone at Southend-on-Sea on Grain Island and the London Stone. So anyway, they're kind of like right next to each other. They're obelisks.
Yeah.
And together, these two obelisks formed the boundaries which marked the seaward limit of the jurisdiction of the City of London. And so it's about 54 kilometers from London Bridge, which is about 33 and a half miles. They were said to have been erected in 1837, which was the first year of the reign of Queen Victoria and the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. She was 18. We'll get that goth again.
Yeah, interesting.
So, doing what I do, I had to look. And there is kind of an alignment between the Crowstone, Stonehenge, and Menontoll. And I'll be talking about Menontoll here in a little bit. And that's a circular megalith that on the day of the Philadelphia experiment, Aleister Crowley was recorded to have passed his son through this megalith, and that caused a line of rough energy to cross through Long Island at Montauk Point onto the Philadelphia Naval Yard where the Philadelphia experiment took place, the USS Eldridge. And I'm still convinced that has something to do with this mess. And we'll go into that here a little bit more. So what's interesting about the Stonehenge connection here is that when we did our talk with Adam about a year or so ago on this subject of the destruction and reverse engineering of the Earth's grid system, somebody that saw it sent him a document on Crowley and the grids. And, again, this really does tie back into what we're talking about. So this deception strategy, it's called archontic deception strategy, is to directly inflict sexual misery, sexual abuse, and sexual slaves on the earth, starting as early and young as possible. This was taken advantage of by the negative aliens to splinter the soul energies rather than integrate and heal them, by controlling the sexual energies, by promoting distortions around the sexual act, gender roles, and corrupting our relationship to our mother and father parent. And humanity descended into sexual misery. In many cases, forms of sexual slavery. There are multiple layers of architecture and mind control that have been artificially created to control, deceive, separate, confuse, torture, and steal human beings' sexual life force. And it is a violation against the human soul. The main collection center for sexual misery is called the NRG. I'm not sure what NRG means, so I'm sorry about that. Network that is the central hub in the UK, and it's designed to create psychopaths and sexual predators based on this whole system that they've set up. And I believe that very much applies to what we're seeing play out today. It's been in the works for quite some time.
Yeah. And you know, I've done that whole series on MK Ultra, and I've done a lot of research myself. Absolutely disgusting. It's true everything you say, because far deep, really deep. You know, pain orientated as well a lot of the time. You got it like the disclosure if you wanted Monsters Inc. The screaming, the energy from it. You know, yeah, horrible,
Yeah.
horrible stuff.
Yeah. So again, just going along the lines that this is absolutely manipulated
Yeah,
and against human will and against humankind, and the crimes against humanity are just off the charts. But we're talking about crows here, and this kind of ties back in on Chad's crow tree, me finding the recognizing the crow stone just a couple of days ago and going, oh wow,
that
isn't
ties
that
in.
interesting? Is The Crow was filmed at Wilmington Studios in North Carolina. And Wilmington is the home of the largest domestic television and movie production facility outside of California. Producer Dino De Laurentiis first came to Wilmington to film Firestarter, which was released in 1984, and after which a number of horror and dark psychological movies were made there. This was where Bruce Lee's son Brandon was shot in the abdomen by a gun and killed at the Wilmington Movie Studios on the set of The Crow in March of 1993.
Yeah,
Joker archetypes
yeah.
like The Crow, the Joker, Ronald McDonald, the Chester Cat in Alice in Wonderland. Same, smile, double rows of teeth, eye makeup.
You could put it in there, couldn't you?
And the
Yeah.
funny thing was, after I started connecting these dots, I started seeing this everywhere. I'll be I like watching American Pickers, and they'll find something like this. I'm like, oh, wow. Ooh, and I'm looking like, oh my God, there it is again. Because this is really menacing symbology. And it doesn't end here. So this is at in Sydney at Luna Park. What do we see? We see people going into the mouth of this smiling visage.
Yeah.
When I realized when I made that connection, it scared the crap out of me.
It's all inverted, isn't it? It's all smiles for this darkness down here, everything. Disney
Yep.
the same.
So again, that idea that this is consuming the humans going through the entrance.
Yeah, yeah, it's consuming, it's eating it. It's yeah. Food. Processing the human. Hashtag.
Okay. So here he is again at Steeplechase Park, which was one of the three major amusement parks on Coney Island early in the 1900s. And this was called Tilly, Smile, Double Rows of Teeth. And somebody saw that in some work I did on these amusement parks and left this comment. When I dream of hell, the smiling man is there and it's a carnival. I am shook that the smiling man is in their imagery. This is something incredibly dark spiritually, is one thing I do know. Okay. So another viewer directed me to this umami interface animated movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I got about a half hour into it and I'm like, I can't watch this.
Yeah.
I'm just not. I've never watched horror or psychological suspense stuff, and the main character is as creepy as they come, and I had to turn it off when it became clear that it had consumed the other character's children after a car accident, the energy of that. And I'll go more into that here in just a moment, because it has a very specific connection to man-machine interface, putting human consciousness in cyborg bodies. But there's a lot of information here, and it does connect to the Philadelphia experiment. And I wish I could get through it, but I really can't because I'm sure it would be validation for what I'm saying. But again, you see the same double rows of teeth with the smile and the clown makeup. And so this character, so the guy that directed my attention to this said that the Umami Interface animated movie and the Philadelphia experiment is involved here, and it talks about the use of trains, lighthouses as energy centers and generators, fallen demons connected to the Philadelphia experiment, linked to time travel and the reverse engineering of the original Earth grid. This is the comments from the person that told me about this. The main character is a morphing clown entity that looks just like the Joker and the others and introduces itself as one of the sailors in the Philadelphia experiment that was destroyed but regained its physicality. As I just said, movie talks in great detail about man-machine interface and transferring human consciousness into machines.
Mm-hmm.
And this creature is a consumer of human energy, like I was saying. So at the very beginning, this is just screenshots of slides from the beginning. The year was 1943. Our ship was stationed in Philadelphia and was equipped to generate an electromagnetic field that would make us invisible to the enemy. What happened instead, we were teleported to New York. In that process, my shipmates were fused to the hull of the ship, embedded in the metal, screaming for help. And this is known. This is the kind of thing that comes up when you look for information on the Philadelphia experiment.
Yeah, that's the actual thing.
When it's not called a hoax.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a hoax. I was destroyed. Forced to regain my physicality. Since the 1943 phenomena, the world we know has been plagued with an immaterial cerebral electricity. It brought in something. We have learned that this electricity was not a foreign substance. It was with us all along. It had simply revealed itself for us to observe and to understand. So this is getting the man-machine interface ready to go.
Yeah.
So this is the very beginning of this thing. I think you saw a little bit of it. I don't know if you saw the whole thing.
I did. I couldn't watch it either. It was disturbing. Although we were aware of it, it still plants something in there, and you don't want that, do you? So yeah.
I just feel like it's disclosure.
It is. That's full on, and this is what we mean about some not everything, but that is 100% disclosure.
Yeah. I mean, the voice of that creature is raspy and creepy and give you nightmares just listening to this thing talk. And then you get into the subject matter and it's like, I think I can live without watching this. Even though, like I said, I think it validates what I think happened. I can't watch it.
No, but it validates everything that's going on in the world when you look at the pull on the sins and the pull on the way the world's going, and it's exactly right. People think people are crazy when they talk about demons and the devil and a force, but like most of these people out there, for me, are just puppets pulling on something else. Why do they all have these rituals and satanic things? It's exactly for this reason.
Yeah, hugely problematic.
Yeah.
This is not our natural state.
No, it's been inverted. Exactly.
The psychological trauma and abuse that goes along with it is just, we've all been messed with.
It's proven in different religions that you can get to certain points of God, if you like, or experience two different ways. There's two paths, sometimes three. One of those paths is generally joy and the right way, and another path is pain. And it's like that that way of getting to the right way for ourselves and about going the right route has been completely hidden and tarnished. And now and it's inverted, and they get through it through the pain route because that's how they activate the power. It can be dual, and Hindus and people know this. They can put themselves through extreme pain, and they can put themselves through extreme pleasure. And Aleister Crowley, I believe, also was known for sexual orgies and different things because they fall hand in hand. It's either extreme pleasure or extreme pain, and they seemingly open up portals and gates to other places or allow us to enter places or other places.
Yeah, he's a bad dude.
Yeah, yeah. Either way, like either if you go that way or that way is too extreme, isn't it? Like it's every way is abuse or wrongness to a degree. So
So I mentioned Menontola and Cornwall just a little bit ago in connection with Stonehenge and Crowstone. So this is where I learned about the Crowley connection with the Philadelphia experiment in Peter Moon's book, Synchronicity and the Seventh Seal. And in this section talks about how he had passed his son through the circular megalith, and that caused a line of rough energy to go through the spot to Long Island in the United States. And then apparently there's a connection to the Great Pyramid of Giza, which this goes on to say, because there was an eclipse that revealed a shadow line which ran all the way from Cairo to Montauk and went straight through Menontola, and that was in 1998. And this is what it looks like. And in our last talk, you talked a lot about the megalith and the hole and the whole night
well, I
yards.
visited there. I went there on purpose, partly because of you. I just thought it's an insult. Michelle's always talking about I've got to get there. So I went. It wasn't too far from where I was. I was surprised at the size of it and different things, but it definitely had an energy to it. And if you kind of, sometimes I wish I was a bird and I could fly above. There's a lot of other stones which link into that stone as well. When I was looking on the maps, you could see alignments from that itself as well. But that seemed to hold a huge amount of power. I haven't really got much more to say about it, to be fair. It was just interesting to go there, to experience it. I don't know what I expected to come from it. But
it wasn't long after that you started doing the mirroring work.
Well,
that seemed to happen right away.
Yeah, like to be fair, maybe that's what it was.
And I just want to make it clear, you're not the only one that has seen that Baphomet image in mirroring.
Yeah, it is all over the internet.
It's not, I mean, you did a whole series on it, but I see it coming up in storms and, work that other people are doing, separate from you doing your work.
Yeah.
So there's definitely another oddness there.
It is, but I feel like to be perfectly honest, I don't know what to say about it. It almost felt like I revealed something that was always been there, and it's a shadow of what is controlling or manipulating this place. We would say an entity or entities. But at the same time, everything we've ever learned doesn't ever tell you that should exist. So for my mind, you've got and for everybody else, I suppose when I really went into it and it was everywhere, it was a bit weird. That's the only way I can put it. And it was all demonic. And people, one person said to me, how do you look at it that way? But the way I looked at it that way, that everything that I could see was associated with what we have been told is demonic. And I'm not talking about things that have been flipped around and things like that. These were really kind of nasty faces that you see in a horror movie. I showed them you, didn't I? You know what I mean? It was nasty faces. It wasn't like I'm really God,
Well, it's like we talked about it at length in our last talk on synchronicities and holograms. I mean, it's like they superimpose this hologram of this Baphomet onto the universal hologram of the Squatter Man or Stick Man, which shows up in ball fields and all kinds of places. And that they gave us their own version, and I think whatever that is siphoning our energy. Our energy is being harvested and it's going somewhere.
Yeah.
So we talked about that in our last conversation at length. it's a really deep subject, and we did not get here by ourselves. There's something vile that's happened here. It's worse than anybody could ever imagine in terms of what we've been going through collectively and what children have been going through. To meet the needs of these things, demonic entities, or however you want to put it. This is very real. It's not, the angel on your shoulder and the devil on your shoulder and, back and forth, back and forth. No, that's not what this is about. This is about feeding on human beings
Sorry,
and our energy.
this is where I was going to go with the mirroring. It's almost like with the word live. An anagram of live is evil. And it almost feels that in this world that we're in, although it's beautiful and I can see the beauty in it, what is overplaced on it, the only way we can live to a degree is to participate in evil. And it's almost like what you found about the mirroring, like I did it everywhere, and then you collaborated it to be a hologram all over us. It's seemingly everywhere and hard to avoid is the best way to put it, because it is even in the wording, if you like. A lot of what we do to live is sinful, especially unless it's done with balance. And this is what me and you talk about a lot, though. And if you have too much cake, it could be seen as gluttony, couldn't it? It's so to live, to eat, if you overeat is sinful, like to, so I believe one of the purposes here is to see beautiful women, is to see grapes and gold and not run to it and want to take it all. That's one of the best qualities we can have as a human being. And then that will, if that transpired as a community, that brings balance and love and compassion and,
that may be the purpose of the exercise and why we've gone through this, is to go through the gauntlet, go through the hero's journey, and come out on the other side ahead.
Yeah.
And growing from it and not hating, staying in love. We don't have to approve or like or anything. We just have to try to stay as neutral as we possibly can and let
We're going to have
justice
those feelings, aren't we? It's about balancing them, isn't it? If there's a war or something, 9/11, you're going to have feelings, but it doesn't mean we should turn into a lynch mob, I think is all I'm trying to say. There's a lot of problems in the UK at the moment with immigration and the gangs of people on the street doing spray painting and flags. And I understand the frustration, but all I really truly see is division, anger, frustration, lack of balance, and more trouble. So, there's certain ways we can handle things, isn't there? Sorry to interrupt.
Right. And like I said, I'm totally optimistic that we're seeing the end game play out, but they're not going to get away with what they've done. So part of this is our awakening, which is why we do this, to give people a different perspective and a different way of looking at things, that's different from what we've been told, and provide a little insight or peephole into some threads that we've found that seem to tie into this upside down world we live in today. So, like, for example, Crowley was called the Baphomet of this organization that he founded, the OTO, which is the Ordo Templis Oriental or something like that. That's what his title was, Baphomet. So this guy is connected with this thing. And I want to mention that this supposedly took place on August 12th of 1943, which is connected with the Lion's Gate portal, and the Lion's Gate is symbolized by the figure 8 on his side, which connects to the timeline that I found between 1492 and 1942 and 1717 as the midpoint year. So that was the same year of the founding of the Grand Premier Lodge of England. And then 1917, July 17th of 1917 was the year that the royal family's name changed from House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha to the House of Windsor. So those 17s and 17s seem to have significance. And so, like, if you're going to change time, this would be the time to do it.
Of course.
And this ley line, which seems to go from Menontal straight through Long Island, going right past the Naval Yard. And there's a lot of anomalies there that I found in my research that gives physical evidence for this taking place. There's a lot of things with time and space and interdimensional portals all right through there. So if you're going to do this, and like you're going to send a naval vessel back in time, which I believe is what happened with the Philadelphia experiment, and it caused this, that would have been the place to do it, and that would have been the time to do it.
Wow, perfect.
So, just saying, that's where my research has taken me.
That's amazing.
So this is an example of that, what I was just saying with that ley line from Menontal, going through, so it would have gone through Nova Scotia here, and this is Cape Cod, Long Island, Philadelphia's here. And like in the Pine Barrens in New Jersey, there's trains that are like in the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
All over the place, and it's a mess. It's described just like the moors in England, with this low nutritional values soil and high in acids and things like that. It's the same kind of description. And then there's actually a train in the middle of a Louisiana swamp on this alignment. So it's like, things just things stopped in their tracks when this happened. So, but I'm just saying there's a line that goes through all these places from where the Philadelphia experiment was on the day it was supposed to have happened, from this place in Cornwall that Aleister Crowley was passing his son through. So anyway, that's just, again, give more evidence as to why I believe this. I don't think it's out there at all. And then somebody left me another comment on a video that I did. If you go down the Paul is dead rabbit hole, it said that Billy Shears was Crowley's son, and Crowley MK altered him for 10 years before his death. No one has proof, but is thought by some Paul is dead researchers that the real Paul's car accident was a sacrifice. And Paul and John Lennon both sold their souls around 1962, 1963, and so was John's death in 1980. Billy Shears was already on tap to replace the real Paul through the Tavistock Institute that was running the culture turn around the occult and all the demonic music that followed and all the rest. So I went to see if I could find anything that substantiates this. And what I found was Aleister Crowley is on the cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Okay, that's what came up when I looked for it.
And what you talk about is all over music. Bands or friends or rappers, cousins or mothers or sons or brothers all dying in a sacrifice. Well, it doesn't say obviously a sacrifice. You just hear about somebody close to them dying, and then all of a sudden they have a hit on the TV, or they're all over the TV, or they have this super album that goes to #1.
Yeah, there's a lot of manipulation, like you said, through that music, like the cultural revolution of that time. And then there's always the opening ceremony of the 2012 London Olympics.
Wow.
They're
always dark, aren't they? No matter what it is, it's so ritualistic. Wow.
So there you've got the creepy dance with the nurses and the children in hospital cribs, and Voldemort-looking giant Grim Reaper towering above them all. The controllers use predictive programming regularly and have for a long time, where they choose avenues like movies, literature, art, and music, like you were just saying, to tell us without telling us. They are telling us. And if we don't get it and object collectively, then they technically have our tacit consent, even if we don't know we were being told something. And that they're counting on that because they think it's their karmic get out of jail free card. And I just wanted to mention, in the same opening ceremony, there was a pepper parade in London in 2012. And the last slide that I have is, it's not a surprise to find the first formal presence of Crowley's OTO was the Agape Lodge in the United States, which would have served Hollywood It was established in Los Angeles in 1935.
You know what I hate about that line is that when you reach the highest of the self and you understand life, the virtues, Jesus, the stories, the analogies, metaphors, all of that, you understand that like you are all of life, or life is all connected, and you kind of have that ability to do what you like. But then what this is the complete opposite of that. It's like somebody finds the truth out that like you have power and like it's divine, and then they go, you know what, like I'm gonna do what the hell I want with it. So instead of doing any good out of it, you just do the most nastiest things you possibly can. And
And
the
that's the
second,
heart of that. That's the
yeah,
heart of this
that's the heart of
organization.
that saying. Yeah. And that's the heart of the conversation. Yeah. They do what the hell they want. And it's because of saying such of that, such as Alistair Crowley, as you say, the fucking heartbeat of it. Do what thou shall will with the whole of the law.
And that was channeled to him through a disincarnate
Mm,
entity in the Great Pyramid when he was honeymooning in Cairo in the early 1900s. And that was where he came up with the Book of the Law and all that stuff. So, I mean, think what you will of what we've shared today.
yeah.
Um, just pointing out all the weird connections
Weird.
and how in the hell did we get to this world we live in today?
Yeah.
And it wasn't under our own steam. That's for darn sure. It's very, very well planned out playbook. Going back to the Premier Grand Lodge of England and the Freemasons and the Jesuits and the Oddfellows and the Knights Templar, or within Freemasonry. The Elks, I think they're the resetters, other secret fraternal organizations that came in and cleaned things up and made things livable after whatever happened. And all the forces, the Vatican, the royal family, that have been complicit, the Astors and the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the DuPonts and the movers and the shakers of this, bringing this new world in and online and harvesting the hell out of everything, which is what's been going on. Resources, energy,
Yeah.
rig the system. So, it's no
Unknowing
wonder,
slaves.
it's no wonder
Unknowing
people are
slaves.
still asleep. People are asleep because this has been in everything.
Everything, that's what the problem is. Everything. They've covered everything. No matter where you look, where you are, it is there. It is in our language, as we say. It is everywhere you look. It is outside your window. This is why we love nature, innit? Trees don't lie, do they? They can still be manipulated with certain things, but it's them.
And I absolutely believe at the end of the day, God wins, and in spite of everything, we're still waking up.
Exactly.
And that we'll take what we've learned from this experience and hopefully never let it happen again. Maybe on down the road in a couple thousands of years, we'll have to go through this all over again. Or maybe we've nipped it in the bud and it won't happen. But we're vastly different in our spiritual natures than we've been led to believe.
Definitely.
And to think of us as sinful creatures that are degenerate isn't true, because we've got God inside of us.
Of course, of course.
Divine love is our true nature. And so they don't want us to know that.
No.
They don't want us to wake up to our co-creative powers, because we can, just by connecting our consciousness, we can defeat them. And so that as a whole, the vibration is raising might not look like it, might not feel like it, but it is.
It is. One by one, it will happen. And that's all that needs to happen. Everyone become aware of themselves. I do believe in duality. I do believe there is half potentially the God and the devil within us, but instead of pulling on the devil and only knowing that exists in you and sinning and yourself and bringing yourself down, is empowering the light within us. As if we look at the
And
day, there is dark and light, you know what I mean? But for so long as the dark seemingly overpowered even the light of this world,
yep.
you
And the
know,
dark has been hard at work.
and that's the problem, isn't it? You know, if the dark's 24/7, that's too much, isn't it? We're not, this is what we're talking about, you know. So,
And as we talked about in our last conversation, Chad, on synchronicities and holograms, synchronicities are little miracles that happen every day, all the time, leaving us going, wow. There's miracles every day, all the time, blessings every day, all the time. And, it's just a matter of tuning into them happening. And once you tune into them, they happen all the time. And I think you were sharing with me in this email exchange that you were noticing more since we had our talk.
yeah, like the synchronous. I don't know about you, but I don't believe I'm alone. I believe it's everybody. The synchronicities I'm having, literally, Michelle. I know it's happened most of my life, but I will say a word. I don't know this, the most peculiar word. The next thing you know, they repeat it on the TV, or the radio sings it. You know.
Yeah, that's you can focus on the horror stories and get anxious and fearful,
Yeah.
or not. And I'm not saying it's easy to navigate things right now. It's not. It's quite disturbing, but it's more exposed than it has ever been. All of the dark underbelly.
Probably.
And that in and of itself is going to reach enough people that aren't um, that are able to see it than prior.
Yeah.
The ones that haven't been affected by the extreme attempt to mind control everything and brainwash and so forth. And so, those that have eyes to see and ears to hear are seeing it. And then when it gets so outrageous, it becomes even more visible. So darkness really never had a chance. Their only chance was to keep us under wraps. But that changed when the internet came in. If the internet hadn't come in, they had control of the books, the educational system, television, news. Internet comes in and we can do our own research and we can connect with each other. And, it was a process. And I think it came in like what, in the early 90s,
Yeah, no,
somewhere around there. It took a while, but it's been the instrument of our awakening, even though they meant it as a control mechanism. Thank goodness it has worked for us.
Any tool can be used mostly for dual purpose, mostly. So they're tools we can use against them, if you like. The internet is the biggest tool we've been able to use against them. It's just absolutely beautiful,
That, or to overcome their agenda, and use it. It's like if movies and television had been used for the good of humanity,
this is it.
It would have been a completely different story.
Of course it would. We've chose to they have chose to take that route, that the agenda has chose to take that route. And that's the only thing that pains people, I suppose, the potential of that world, and they lose faith. But that doesn't mean that world cannot come. Right. So that's why I never lose faith. Just because it has been darkened, it doesn't mean that light can't come.
Exactly the same. You get into that mindset and you've given up hope and you've lost. You've given them the one thing you have over them.
Faith, hope, whichever words suit you.
And that's why I will never believe they're going to get away with this.
No.
I can't go there.
It cannot anyway. Logically, the sun always comes back from a dark night. I don't know if I always repeat myself. I just know because of that. The way I see it We've been through the dark night, and the sun comes and it brightens up when the sun comes in the morning, and the sun lasts for a period before it can get dark again. That's all that's happening, people. We've literally gone from the golden age, is what we speak of, with this beautiful ancient technology, which light, and then it inverted because it come dark and they rain through darkness, but it can never last. It can never last. Just as the night can never last and the sun always rises in on the morning. And when that time's happened, everything inverts itself back. And like every one of us are little jigsaw pieces or little chess pieces that add to that, no matter what small action we do, rather than adding to the darkness, add to the light, is what I'm saying.
Yep. I think about it as returning to unity consciousness and all of us being cells in the body of God.
This is
We're
it.
all
Absolutely
our
beautiful.
own, consciousness cells and experiences and all that stuff. And if our cells were fighting against us, we wouldn't be able to function. So it's returning to that wholeness that is our natural state also.
And at the same time, what do the cells tend to do? Well, the body, not the cells necessarily. The body sleeps, doesn't it? For a significant period of time. And maybe we have been asleep. I love it. I love you.
We're spiritual beings, we're having a human experience. And even though we can't see it or, feel it or anything like that, that's, that's the reality. We may not be aware of what's going on a spiritual level. And maybe it would help if we did, or maybe it wouldn't help. But there's way more to the story about who we are and what Earth is and was and will be. And, we just have to, like what I say is we have to let go of everything we've ever believed to be true in order to receive the truth or start receiving it. Because once you start interpreting things through your own particular filters, you lose a lot of information.
Well, to be honest, Michelle, if I've got one last thing to say, it's I don't care what anyone really believes or thinks, because I understand everyone has a perspective and an opinion. As long as they're graceful and respectful to other people and how they conduct themselves is what really matters to me. I want to be, and I hope I am, the type of person that if there's an asteroid coming down at the Earth and we can see it, I'm not going to run around and scream. I'm going to stand there graciously and maybe hold my family and remember my life, and if someone comes up to me for help that really needs help. And I'm not saying everything should be giving, but that's just to be the best you can be. And that's all we can ever be, It's that self-control, that balance.
Yeah, I completely agree. Giving too much is not good either.
No, this is it. This is what I'm trying to say. Don't stand there and give everything you've got away. No. That's the balance again.
Yeah, that's my lesson.
You can almost tell when true help is needed, because those that believe in God, he tells you, you feel it, you hear it, when you need to do something, when the time is right. Trust in that good instinct that you call it, or God or faith. Trust in it because it tells you. If it's saying that person doesn't really need your help, it's probably right. He doesn't need your help. But if you're saying he really does need your help, maybe he does. There's a balance with everything. But the most important thing in the whole world is helping yourself to become the best person you can be. And then in return, you can become the best person for everyone else. And that is one of the hardest things to do in the world, because we've got the two clashes of the mind within us. Half the mind saying you crap or you shit or you're not good enough, and the rest of the mind trying to strive forward. And don't ever think that you're alone with that, because I actually believe every single person in the world has it. And it's just a case of balancing that and quieting the mind and striving forth on the good, not the bad.
And question the narrative.
Yes. Yes, because of all the influences coming in, a lot of the time it's not even you thinking what you're thinking.
Yeah. Just don't blindly believe everything you've ever been told, because guess what? It's a huge problem for humanity at this point.
This is it. And at the same time, you can have compassion and love and stand up for yourself. It's the balance again. You don't have to lie down to be loving and compassionate. You stand up for what is right. That's what I've always believed. It's like the virtues of a warrior, is it? You know, you always try your hardest no matter the outcome. You fight only to defend or if you need to, but you won't go out and just slaughter people for the sake of it. You know, so I believe everything's true. It's just the balance of it. They talk about the angels fighting the devils. They still fought. Angels still fight. Don't sit there and go, take me. You were a balanced being and understand you have that in you. So just balance it.
And that's the whole thing with human vibration and like power versus force, David
Yes.
Hawkins' work. And,
Yeah.
The bottom level is like fear and shame.
Yeah.
And the top is like joy and bliss.
Yes.
Well, joy and bliss doesn't mean always be happy about everything.
Exactly. And you
It doesn't
can't
mean
be.
that.
And you can't be. It would be impossible to always be
It
there.
it means don't let don't let yourself be pulled off balance by the hard stuff.
Exactly.
Have the same mind about everything. Have the same mind of love about everything. Have that feeling in your heart of joy. Oh, that bad thing happened, but
Bad
wow,
things happen.
but I'm just saying it,
Yeah,
it's not, it's how we look at things. That's the vibration.
exactly,
And for
Michelle.
everybody that can raise their vibration, it raises everybody's vibration, which is what
Exactly.
power versus force talks about.
Even as simply as understanding bad things do happen to good people. If we understand that, then we understand that bad things can happen. It's as simple as just saying those words. If you drop the potatoes on the floor and the meat, there's no point kicking off about and screaming and kicking the kid in the bum, is there? Sorry. Or kicking the dog. Like bad things happen or things happen. So, like, you've got to understand that happens as well as one time you'll cook the roast potatoes in the meat absolutely perfectly. Like they both come. So they will come. One day you'll go outside and it'll be raining and you'll go, God, I've got to wear that coat I don't like. And then one day you go out and it's sunny. Everything will come. We handle it all the same because we are warriors. And no matter what the outside circumstances are, we should handle them the same. They shouldn't affect the inside.
There was a saying in a book on meditation when I was really needing to learn how to calm my mind down years ago. I'm not saying I mastered it, not by any stretch of the imagination. I have not. But it's like you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf.
Exactly.